Why were they targeting him? And how did they make it all seem so normal?
A viral video, a candid voice, and a series of allegations that left all of Hollywood holding its breath. At 48, Jaguar Wright has just dropped revelations that, if true, could shake the entire entertainment industry. She hinted that she knows who might have been behind the hit targeting Malcolm-Jamal Warner, a face familiar to millions from The Cosby Show. These aren't just idle backstage whispers. They form a speculative portrait of shadowy power-chilling warnings and a system many believe is ready to silence anyone who dares to speak out. Rumors suggest that the FBI has taken an interest in the matter. But what if it truly exists could turn a trip to Costa Rica into a final escape? Who is hiding behind the curtain, and what do they want Malcolm to stay silent about? Could this be nothing more than a tragic coincidence? Or is it a story that hasn't yet been fully told? Two names, two paths, and a mysterious intersection. Imagine this. You're sitting in front of your screen scrolling through a flood of Hollywood news. The familiar faces, the fleeting scandals, the whispered secrets behind the scenes. But this time, it's not about a broken love story or a canceled movie deal. It's an explosive accusation that could rip away the glittering curtain hiding the industry's darker side. And at the center of this storm, there are two names, Malcolm-Jamal Warner and Jaguar Wright. One is a childhood icon for millions of American viewers. The other is a blunt, fearless R&B singer. The question is, why are these two people seemingly unrelated being pulled into the same story, one that even the FBI is rumored to have its eyes on? Malcolm-Jamal Warner, born in 1971, appeared before the public at the age of just 14. He played Theo Huxtable in The Cosby Show, NBC's hit series from 1984 to 1992, reaching 30 million viewers every week. From a teenage boy, Malcolm grew up before the audience's eyes, carrying an image that was intelligent, witty, yet approachable like the ideal older brother. After The Cosby Show ended, his career was far from one note like many other child stars. He appeared in numerous television shows and films, won an Emmy Award, and even ventured into music as a rapper, producer, and director. But what earned him public respect was not just his versatile talent, but also the way he maintained a clean image in a Hollywood full of temptation and scandal. However, behind that calm demeanor is someone unafraid to speak his mind. Malcolm has repeatedly spoken out about inequality, the media's distortion of black identity, and the invisible pressures weighing on artists. He's not the type to stay silent to stay safe. And this, according to some rumors, may have brought him into conflict with forces that prefer to remain in the shadows. In recent interviews, his voice carries an unusual urgency, as if he's counting down the days to say something before it's too late. On the other side, Jaguar Wright is a name tied to the neo-soul and R&B sound of the early 2000s. She collaborated with the Roots' Jay-Z Common, her voice powerful, her stage presence full of emotion. But what has put her in the spotlight in recent years isn't music. It's a series of shocking statements about the dark side of the entertainment industry. Jaguar has no hesitation in naming artists, producers, and powerful executives, accusing them of everything from abuse of power manipulation of artists to silencing those who speak up. Interestingly, this isn't the first time Jaguar has dropped bombshells, some of which later turned out to be true. This is why whenever she appears with a grave expression and starts with, "I know who's behind this," the internet takes notice. At 48, Jaguar has moved past the stage of wanting to please everyone. Now she's more like an unwilling witness determined to recount what she's seen and heard no matter the danger. What makes this story even more gripping is how these two people's paths cross. Malcolm and Jaguar aren't lifelong friends, but they exist within the same complex entertainment network where everyone either knows or has at least heard whispers about each other. Jaguar once said she couldn't stay silent when she saw Malcolm in danger. According to her, he's not just the victim of an unfortunate accident, but potentially the target of a removal campaign. To understand better, remember that Malcolm is not a compliant artist in Hollywood's eyes. He refuses to be the safe version of a black man that the industry prefers. He doesn't engage in scandal stunts to maintain media heat. Instead, he chooses the path of speaking uncomfortable truths. At a time when the industry is busy with image wars like the Drake versus Kendrick Lamar feud, Malcolm points out that this isn't just a personal clash, but the work of forces aiming to divide and weaken strong black voices. And Jaguar. She has described Hollywood as a power chessboard where every artist is a piece that can be sacrificed. She believes that when an artist stops playing by the rules, or is about to reveal something dangerous, An invisible hand will move to remove them one way or another. In Jaguar's eyes, Malcolm is standing right on that red line. And his trip to Costa Rica wasn't purely for relaxation. It looked more like an effort to keep a safe distance from danger. Of course, all of this remains Jaguar's perspective and assumption with no solid legal proof. But its weight lies in the fact that similar stories have happened before. Mariah Carey signed a contract worth nearly $100 million, only to suddenly have a mental breakdown and vanish from the stage months later. Martin Lawrence ran into the street with a gun shouting, "They're trying to kill me." Dave Chappelle walked away from a $50 million deal with Comedy Central and disappeared to Africa because he felt pressured to perform sketches offensive to his community. These stories, though different in each case, carry the same unsettling flavor, the sense that something big is happening behind the scenes. When you put these pieces together, the picture is far from comforting. A successful, yet headstrong Malcolm-Jamal Warner, unwilling to play the role the system wants. A Jaguar Wright, who has repeatedly accused powerful forces, now publicly claiming he's been threatened by extremely powerful people. A nighttime beach video where Malcolm looks so tense that viewers can't help but wonder, what's on his mind? Who is he afraid of? And this is only the background. From the moment Jaguar spoke these words, the story was no longer just an online rumor. There's speculation that the FBI has begun reviewing the details, much like in the 2022 Shanquella Robinson case. If that's true, then what's being revealed is just the tip of the iceberg. The submerged part where the names, motives, and real connections lie remains hidden in the dark. The question is, will the light reach it in time before another truth is buried? And when all the clues point in the same direction, what will we uncover in the next chapters of this story? Malcolm's final days, a contradictory timeline. If you only heard the story from quick news reports, you'd think Malcolm-Jamal Warner had taken a normal vacation in Costa Rica until a drowning accident claimed his life. Simple, neat, and leaving no questions behind. But when each piece of information is placed side by side, the picture begins to crack. What the press reported, what Jaguar Wright claimed, and what witnesses recounted, all of it fails to align. From here, the timeline of Malcolm's final days turns into a maze of contradictions. According to initial reports, Malcolm traveled to Costa Rica for rest to recharge after a busy schedule. But Jaguar Wright paints a completely different picture. She says this was not a trip for peace, but a journey of escape. She describes Malcolm as already feeling watched beforehand, and the flight abroad as an effort to temporarily slip out of the tightening invisible net. In Jaguar's telling, Malcolm was not at ease when leaving the US. He carried with him a wariness like someone who knew exactly he was in someone's crosshairs. Then came a moment that became the focal point of suspicion, a video showing Malcolm walking alone on the beach just hours before his death. No lights, no passers-by, only the sound of waves and surrounding darkness. At a glance, it looks like a quiet night stroll. But when the frame is enlarged, every gesture of Malcolm becomes strange. His eyes are far from relaxed. They dart around constantly, as if searching for or guarding against something. His shoulders are tense, his steps uneven, and his face holds an unmistakable strain. This is not the demeanor of someone on vacation. The internet quickly split into camps. Some argued that Malcolm was under the influence of drugs or stimulants. His tension, the occasional unsteadiness, were seen as evidence. But then the autopsy results shattered that theory. His body showed no trace of drugs or alcohol. Not a drop. This raises a bigger question. If Malcolm was completely sober, then what made him look like someone who had just received terrible news? The contradictions did not stop there. The first official report stated that Malcolm drowned while trying to save his daughter from a strong current. According to the statement, he was playing with her near the shore, saw her in danger, and immediately jumped in with a friend to help. The friend made it out, but Malcolm did not. A heroic story, if it were true, because shortly afterward, the Atlantic Coast Police Chief in Costa Rica gave a completely different account. Malcolm's family, including his daughter, was not at the beach when the incident happened. They had interviewed the family and confirmed this. This 180-degree turn left the public baffled. If the family wasn't there, then who was the daughter in danger in the original story? And why did two official sources provide opposite accounts? When the Daily Mail sought clarification, Costa Rica's Judicial Investigation Agency did not retract the initial statement. On the contrary, they reaffirmed that Malcolm's daughter was indeed on shore, even adding that a surfer saved her with his board, and a volunteer lifeguard pulled Malcolm and another person to land. This made the picture even more tangled. Now there were at least 3 different versions from supposedly reliable sources. The overlap deepened when on-site witnesses shared what they saw. Some said Malcolm was alone. Others insisted he was with a friend. Some recalled a dramatic rescue while others saw no such scene. Amid this maze of accounts, the only clear thing is, no one truly knows what happened. Then came details that made the official story harder to believe. First, Malcolm was no stranger to the ocean. He was a strong swimmer praised for his ability to handle himself in the water. He knew how to deal with powerful waves and rip currents. The likelihood of someone like that being swept away without resistance is very low unless something prevented him from fighting back. Second, there was no sign Malcolm had struggled to stay afloat. According to one source, rescuers found no scratches, bruises, or signs of exhaustion from struggling. This leads to a chilling theory his death may have occurred before he even entered the water. If true, then finding his body in the sea was merely an arranged aftermath made to look like a drowning. Finally, the tension in that beach video no longer seems like a minor detail in hindsight. If Malcolm was truly running or knew he was under threat, then that solitary walk might have been the final moment he realized things had gone too far. And if Jaguar Wright's theory is correct, this was not a man strolling for relaxation, but the image of someone calculating whether speaking the truth was still possible in time. When you piece it all together, a trip described as vacation but suspected to be escape, a haunting video conflicting accounts and illogical details about Malcolm's swimming ability, the story of his death is no longer a simple accident report. It becomes a puzzle with too many unknowns, each answer opening up yet another layer of mystery. And the biggest question still hangs in the air: if Malcolm really left the US to get away from a threat, then what was that threat? And did it catch up to him before the waters of Costa Rica touched his skin? Jaguar Wright drops a bomb, accusations and hidden motives. Just suppose that what Jaguar Wright says about Malcolm-Jamal Warner is at least partly true. Then the story would no longer be a vacation accident in Costa Rica, but could turn into a far more complex picture. In that scenario, Malcolm was not simply enjoying sun and sea, but living with the awareness that he was being watched, threatened, and perhaps had only a short time before every door closed on him. Jaguar claims that extremely powerful people had their eyes on Malcolm, that he was preparing to reveal a secret big enough to shake Hollywood. She even spoke of a direct warning, stay silent or die, said to have happened before that beach video was recorded. From this angle, the trip to Costa Rica doesn't look like a holiday, but more like an effort to find space to think, weigh his options, or simply get away from mounting pressure. But that's only one slice of the picture. Others will ask, where did Jaguar get this information? And is it based on concrete evidence or just a mix of accounts and her intuition? In the entertainment world, sources are both precious and difficult to verify, and the words of a controversial figure like Jaguar tend to sit on one of two extremes, believed completely or doubted entirely. Jaguar describes Malcolm as someone who refused to play the role of the safe black artist, a compliant, agreeable, non-confrontational image that Hollywood often favors. She emphasizes that he chose to speak out against injustice, criticizing the media's distortion and dehumanization of black identity. In the historical context of the American entertainment industry, this is not a light move. Many believe that when an artist breaks this unwritten rule, they enter a zone of risk. Of course, that viewpoint can also be seen differently. Speaking out does not necessarily mean being silenced. Many other artists have been outspoken about social issues and still continue to work and succeed. A struggling career could arise from countless causes, shifting trends, commercial pressures, or even personal factors invisible to the public. What Jaguar recounts reminds many of past high-profile cases. In 2005, Dave Chappelle walked away from a $50 million contract with Comedy Central and left for Africa. When he returned, he explained he had been under creative pressure, pushed to perform sketches he found not only meaningless, but offensive to his community. Chappelle's sudden departure sparked a storm of theories, from burnout to hidden conflicts. Mariah Carey also disappeared for a short period after signing a nearly $100 million contract with the media, reporting a health incident whose details were never fully clear. Martin Lawrence, in another shocking episode, was seen running down the street with a gun shouting, "They're trying to kill me." Each story has its own context and causes, but the feeling that something isn't right has lingered in the public mind. From a broader view, the common thread many draw is when artists don't play by the rules, whatever those rules are, and whoever sets them, their career path often becomes rockier. That said, not playing by the rules can sometimes simply mean a different artistic choice, not necessarily the result of any shadowy force. Perhaps the weight of Jaguar's words lies not in whether they are definitively true or false, but in how they touch on doubts already present in the public's mind about the transparency of the entertainment industry. When someone like Jaguar, already known for bold statements, talks about a stay silent or die threat, it strikes at the audience's curiosity and fear, whether they believe it or not. Maybe Malcolm truly was in danger. Or maybe it was all just coincidence, a trip, a beach video, and a tragic ending. But when these pieces are placed alongside precedents like Chappelle Mariah or Lawrence, it's easy to see why Jaguar's story caught fire so quickly online. It's dramatic enough and leaves just enough gaps for anyone to piece together their own version of events. And perhaps until there is clear proof, the question is, what Jaguar says true will continue to hover like a shadow. Not confirmed, not denied, but strong enough to keep people watching, talking, and doubting. The connection to the Drake-Kendrick feud. If Jaguar Wright's story is only a theory, then the link between Malcolm-Jamal Warner and the high-profile clash between Drake and Kendrick Lamar is the part that makes that theory darker in tone. In the context of the entire hip-hop industry being swept into a cycle of lyrics, clapbacks, and mocking exchanges, Malcolm took an unusual stance. He didn't choose a side. Not because he didn't care, but according to Jaguar, he observed the whole battle like someone standing outside the ring, watching the way audiences got swept up, the way the media amplified it, and most importantly, the way some force seemed to be pulling the strings behind it all. In his statements, Malcolm is said to have pointed out that when two of the most powerful black artists of the moment go head-to-head, the biggest winner may not be the one who comes out on top, but those who want to see both weakened. From one perspective, this is a highly logical observation. In any industry, division at the top often opens the door for other players to rise or consolidate control. But from another angle, by saying this out loud, Malcolm may have touched on forbidden zones that most artists avoid mentioning publicly. If Jaguar is right, this was the turning point that made Malcolm a problem in the eyes of the shadowy powers. He didn't play the game of picking sides, something the media could have exploited for more drama, and worse, from the perspective of the forces Jaguar alludes to, he exposed the motives behind it. This put him in the position of someone breaking the script. And as many past stories have shown, breaking the script is rarely a safe path in the entertainment industry. Supporters of Jaguar's view say Malcolm wasn't unaware of the risk. One piece of evidence they cite is his final podcast before his death. In it, Malcolm is described as speaking with urgency, seemingly unconcerned with pleasing anyone. He hinted at exposing everything about the mechanisms and networks he believed were manipulating the image, careers, and even personal lives of black artists. Interestingly, he didn't name anyone specific or provide direct evidence, but his choice of words emphasizing they/them, the controllers gave the impression that he was referring to an actual group, not some abstract concept. For those familiar with behind-the-scenes entertainment talk, it was a clear signal that he was alluding to something sensitive. However, some argue this could just be Malcolm's speaking style, emotive, metaphor-rich, and that connecting it directly to conspiracy theories is too big of a leap. In the world of podcasts and talk shows, strong language is often just a way to keep listeners engaged, not necessarily proof of a plan or inside knowledge. Either way, the reality is that this podcast has now become part of the larger picture Jaguar is painting. A Malcolm who recognized deliberate division in the black artist community spoke out about it, and then became caught in a chain of events leading to a controversial death. For those who believe Jaguar, this is a cause and effect chain. For more cautious minds, it's just a striking coincidence. It's this hard-to-classify nature that makes the connection between Malcolm and the Drake-Kendrick feud such a special puzzle piece. It's not as clear-cut as a leaked contract or a lawsuit, but it creates an invisible thread linking a personal tragedy to a pop culture event. And once audiences start seeing these threads, whether faint or obvious, they can't help but keep asking, is this just a series of coincidences or a link in something bigger? FBI involvement when suspicion turns into investigation. If everything surrounding Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death had stayed at the level of rumor, the story might have faded quickly. But if federal authorities really have taken an interest in the case, the picture changes entirely. The reason is easy to understand. Malcolm was an American citizen, and he died abroad under circumstances that many consider suspicious. In the past, such situations have prompted U.S. government intervention, especially when public doubt at home runs high. The most cited example is the 2022 case of Shanquella Robinson. The young woman died while vacationing in Cabo, Mexico, and at first her death was said to be caused by alcohol poisoning. But leaked video footage and conflicting statements turned the incident into a media flashpoint. Although Mexican authorities launched their own investigation, the FBI also got involved, seeking the truth from multiple sources, witnesses, physical evidence, and even digital data. The final outcome of that case remains debated, but it proved one thing: when suspicion is high enough and the victim is an American, federal authorities don't hesitate to step in. Applied to Malcolm's case, a potential FBI investigation could take several directions. One would be to examine whether he had been threatened before his death. This could involve tracing his communications in the final week's messages, emails, meeting schedules to find signs of threats or unusual pressure. Another would be to determine whether there were elements of organized crime or a coordinated group emerging from the evidence. Both avenues require the level of access and resources that only an agency like the FBI can bring. There's also the realm of physical and digital evidence from the scene. If the case is treated as suspicious, data from security cameras at the resort beach or nearby routes would be invaluable. Witnesses from hotel staff and other tourists to lifeguards could provide accounts that either support or contradict the official version. Medical records, including the autopsy report, would be analyzed in detail to pinpoint the true time and cause of death. Naturally, this raises the issue of cooperation between U.S. and Costa Rican authorities, a factor that may be more complex than the public realizes. Beyond technical investigation, there's another angle: Hollywood's reaction or lack thereof. In similar cases, we often see a wave of tributes, shared memories, and even public calls for transparency from colleagues. But with Malcolm, public responses from familiar faces have been fewer than expected. Depending on perspective, this silence could be seen as respect for privacy and a wait for accurate information before speaking, or as a sign of a silent consensus to avoid involvement in a controversial story. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, rumors have spread rapidly. Some whisper that Malcolm warned a few close contacts before going to Costa Rica. Others mention tense conversations between him and certain influential figures. No one dares confirm these stories, but their persistence shows both the pull and the sensitivity of the case. When a story has all the ingredients: an unexpected death, a foreign-setting allegations involving powerful forces, and a central figure who was once a cultural icon, it is almost certain to catch public attention, and possibly that of investigators. Whether or not the FBI has actually stepped in, the mere idea is enough to shift public perception of the case from an accident to a mystery in need of unraveling. And once the question has been asked, it's hard for it to disappear until an answer emerges, if that answer is ever made public. Theories about who gave the order. As the story of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death spread and Jaguar Wright's account began circulating across platforms, the natural question arose: if there really was an order, who would be behind it? At this point, everything sits firmly in the realm of speculation. No one has a definite answer, and each scenario comes with its own strengths, weaknesses, and gaps in information, making it both worth discussing and hard to confirm. Theory 1. Power within the entertainment industry. Some people look toward highly influential figures in Hollywood as a possible link. The reasoning is straightforward in an industry worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Power comes not only from box office returns or music streaming numbers, but also from controlling the narrative and image. If an individual like Malcolm, as described by Jaguar, was about to reveal information that could shake the foundation of this order, being removed from the game figuratively or literally might be seen as a way to protect the system. The motive in this theory lies in maintaining a stable image and preventing leaks that could trigger a chain of scandals. For those who believe in this theory, the "stay silent or die" line Jaguar mentioned serves as a symbolic shorthand for the kinds of pressure the powerful might exert to protect their interests. Theory 2. Financial or contractual disputes. Another line of speculation focuses on the possibility that Malcolm was involved in a financial dispute. In the entertainment industry, contracts over rights, image, or content production often involve huge sums and complex terms. A single disagreement over profit-sharing ownership of creative works, or a breach of confidentiality, can lead to intense friction between parties. Supporters of this theory suggest that if Malcolm had been in the midst of a major negotiation or conflict, and if he refused to compromise or threatened to reveal damaging information to the other side, that could create a motive to resolve the problem decisively. However, there is no public record indicating that he was involved in any lawsuit or contractual battle at the time, so this remains pure speculation based on what can happen in the industry. Theory 3. Personal relationships used as leverage. This theory is less publicly discussed, but still circulates in backstage conversations. It's based on the idea that sometimes a personal relationship, romantic, familial, or a close partnership can be exploited to pressure an individual. If Malcolm had a relationship that made him vulnerable emotionally or reputationally, those wishing to manipulate him might have used it as leverage. Some have speculated that the early media reports claiming he died while saving his daughter could have been part of a crafted narrative, even though this detail was later disputed. In the logic of this theory, adding a family element to the story not only stirs public emotion, but also distracts from more sensitive issues. The common thread in all three scenarios is the lack of direct evidence. There are no documents, recordings, or specific witnesses made public to confirm any of them. Furthermore, in an environment as rumor-prone as Hollywood, information is easily distorted or exaggerated over time. A single remark can become evidence simply because it's repeated often enough, even when its source is unclear. Additionally, events like contractual tensions, power struggles, or personal relationship breakdowns happen regularly in the industry without leading to tragedy. Singling out one case and attaching an assassination order element requires a level of proof the public has yet to see. So why do many still believe Jaguar without evidence? Part of it comes from her personal history. Jaguar Wright has made bold claims about other well-known figures before, and in some cases later details have not been entirely baseless. This has given her the image of a whistleblower willing to say what others avoid. On top of that, her story about Malcolm aligns with familiar patterns. An artist speaks out, clashes with power, then meets an unusual end, making it easier to accept in a climate where the public is already skeptical about the transparency of the entertainment industry. Hoi ChatGPT. The story of Malcolm-Jamal Warner, with all its theories, suspicions, and conflicting accounts, still leaves a gap without an answer. It could be nothing more than a chain of unfortunate events, or it could be a piece of a much larger picture the public has never seen. Whichever direction you believe, one thing is clear: when questions remain unanswered, the drive to seek the truth never fades. If you want to keep following deeper analyses, hear more diverse perspectives, and join in dissecting the stories mainstream media often overlooks, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Because who knows, the next video might bring the most important piece to complete this puzzle.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.